Okay, so today's lesson is acceleration due to gravity. Let's just get on with it. You should have the handouts in front of you. First of all is understanding the idea of the concept of free fall. And when we talk about free fall, we're thinking that the only force acting on an object at that point in time is gravity. So it's something that's in the air. We assume there's no air resistance. And the thing that's true is that all objects, regardless of mass, in free fall have the same acceleration. And this can help us do lots of calculations with things that are falling. The acceleration due to gravity, we actually give it a common symbol all the time. It's g. And so if you ever hear the term, 45 g's or 2 g's or 3 g's, whatever, it's talking about factors of 9.8 meters per second squared, which is the acceleration due to gravity. Now that number is only true on the surface of Earth. Wherever you are in the universe, there is a g. There's an acceleration due to gravity, but it changes depending on where you are. So if you're on the surface of Mars, for example, a smaller, lighter planet, it's a number, and I can't remember offhand, but it's about 5 or something. So we're on Earth, it's 9.8. Mars, it's 5. I think on the Moon, it's about 2. On Jupiter, it's about 25. So depending on where you are, the value of g changes. But we assume on Earth, for every calculation we do, we assume that g is 10 or 9.8 meters per second squared. And of course the direction is down towards the center of the Earth. And the picture here is just supposed to say that you drop something. If you drop something, when you first drop it, it has no speed, right? And then after a second of being dropped, it's at 10 meters per second. After 2 seconds of being dropped, it's at 20 meters per second. At 3 seconds, it's 3 meters per second, and so forth. And that sort of reflects the idea of acceleration due to gravity. Okay, so the effect of mass on the acceleration due to gravity. Here's a great video. This is, I believe it's Neil Armstrong on the very first sort of moon venture. It's terrible quality, but it's from 1969. Oops. Oh, I lost it. Come back. There we go.
And I have a feather. In my right hand, a hammer. And I guess one of the reasons we got here today was because of a gentleman named Galileo a long time ago, who made a rather significant discovery about falling objects in gravity fields. And we thought that where would be a better place to confirm his findings than on the moon. And so we thought we'd try it here for you. The feather happens to be appropriately a falcon feather for our falcon. And I'll drop the two of them here, and hopefully they'll hit the ground at the same time. How about that? That proves that Mr. Galileo was correct in his findings.
So pretty cool. Whoops. So pretty cool. And the idea there, of course, is that where there is no air resistance, a feather and a hammer would fall at the same rate. And that was Galilei from the 1500s came up with that realization that that was true, that mass only affects it because of the effect of air resistance on mass. But if something had no air, like on the moon, you drop two things and they fall exactly the same rate. In Earth now, there's been plenty of what's called vacuum chambers being built, big enough that they could study that effect on Earth. They didn't need to go to the moon to figure that out or to prove Einstein or Galileo's point. Another concept, so I talked about things that fall. The reality is that there is air resistance. The beauty for our class, for high school in general, is we don't often include it in our calculations. We often assume there's none, but we know that in fact that there is. And there's something called terminal velocity. And terminal velocity means that if something is in free fall and it falls long enough, it accelerates, but air resistance actually increases as the object falls. And there becomes a point where you stop speeding up. And that's what we call terminal velocity. And there's not a lot of calculations we do with it, but it is something that, we should understand as physicists on Earth, that even though in high school we like to neglect air resistance, the fact is that things do find a speed that they stop speeding up because air resistance has such a big effect. This is a great example of that, if you like Mythbusters.
This myth originated in the Big Apple, atop an architectural icon, the Empire State Building.
The myth is that if you throw a penny off of a building this height, that it'll either get going so fast that it'll embed itself in the concrete at the base of the building, or it'll hit somebody in the head and kill them.
Adam and Jamie need to find out what is a penny's maximum speed when falling. In other words, its terminal velocity. Once they've done that, they'll shoot the coin at concrete, asphalt, and a head made from ballistics gel. It's time to see if Jamie's penny can achieve terminal velocity. The modified staple gun blasts the coin from 3 feet at the concrete block.
Look, you can see the penny imprint.
The penny traveled the 3 feet in 16/500ths of a second.
The rig has shown that we can fire this penny at about 65 miles an hour, which is at the upper level of what studies have shown that the terminal velocity of a penny would be.
So the test shows that a coin traveling at terminal velocity cannot penetrate concrete or asphalt. But what about flesh and bone? Remember, the penny myth talks about a penny shattering someone's skull. Enter Norma, Adam's ballistics dummy. Norma's cranium will take the full brunt of a penny traveling at terminal velocity.
Lights. Perfect hit. Lights off.
The penny broke through the thin layer of ballistics gel, but the skull is intact.
So, you ready to put that to the ultimate test? We've tried it on all the other stuff we've got. Want to try and catch it in your hand?
The penny is leaving an imprint in the concrete when it hits, so, I'm a little hesitant about catching it, actually.
The Mythbusters are about to find out what happens when a penny traveling at 64 miles per hour hits skin.
I'll do it.
Okay.
But you got to do it too, otherwise, you're like a wuss.
Okay, you first.
Okay. Still a wuss.
I'll kick your
Penny for your thoughts right about now, Adam.
I'm scared.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Ow! That didn't actually hurt that much.
Well, Jamie, take cover, because Adam's taking aim.
All right. Firing. And 3, 2, 1. Well, that seemed to work like a charm.
Look at that imprint. You can clearly see where it hit.
The penny is shot from the slot at almost 3 times the speed of sound.
The high-speed camera result apparently is 3,000 feet per second.
That's like a bullet. That's the speed of a bullet.
The coin still did not end up embedded in the block.
64 miles an hour just wasn't enough to cause any kind of damage to a person. And then when we made it go almost 3 times the speed of sound, it still wasn't enough to break the bones.
Yeah, I mean, the worst thing I can come up with is if you were looking straight up in the sky and you got hit in the eye, it probably wouldn't be very good for you. But even then, I don't know whether it'd take your eye out.
I think we've busted the heck out of this one.
Myth busted.
Yeah.
Okay, so the point of that video is just the idea that when the myth, of course, you drop a penny off the Empire State Building, it could kill you if it hit you. They couldn't actually do the test because the wind currents wouldn't allow the penny to fall, but which is proof in and of itself. However, when getting it to terminal velocity, the fastest that the penny would go, it still couldn't kill you. So that was the penny drop. Obviously, I pinched that from Mythbusters off the YouTube there, so not my video. Why can't a cat survive fall? Of course, they make use of terminal velocity and air resistance, so they say a cat can land off really high heights and not die. Of course, they turn themselves into a kite, and this is sort of a little vision of what a cat looks like in free fall before they land. So a couple of calculations that I want you to be able to do in these formulas. They're just applications of formulas I've actually already given you with related to acceleration, but these are sort of the abbreviated forms, where h is the height of a drop and t is the time that something is dropping. So if you knew how long something fell for, you could find its height, and vice versa with time. You could rearrange that formula. So let's use those formulas a couple times. Quick thing before we do. Assumptions you can make when dealing with free fall. Say you threw a tennis ball up in the air, the time to go up equals the time to go down. When it gets to the very top, its speed is 0. If you drop an object, its initial speed is 0. And if you threw something up and caught it at the same height again, it'd be going the same speed, just different directions. So here's our example. Stairs is hiking when he comes to the top of a high cliff. In order to determine pardon my spelling error, determine the height of the cliff, he drops his compass and waits to hear the splash. So he's standing up here, he waits for a splash. Neglecting the speed of sound, he hears the splash 2.5 seconds later. What is the height of the cliff? And this is applying the formula I showed you earlier. So we know the time, we need to find height, we just sub it into the formula, and a little check mark to say 31 meters is high, but not that high, not unreasonably high for the height of the cliff. Applying the other formula, this time Ritzma catches a Central student on the northwestern roof. He chases the kid and accidentally Ritzma runs right off the roof. We know that the height of the roof is 7.2 meters. Where he falls, how long will it take him to hit the ground? So here we just apply this formula, the other. So if you're looking for time, this is the formula you use. So you just need those two formulas on your sheet. You can see you just substitute in. Good to practice these calculations because working with the square root, but it takes them 1.2 seconds to hit the ground. Again, a fairly reasonable number. And yeah, I think that's it. So that's our lesson on acceleration due to gravity. There's lots of good labs related to this one you should be trying out.